It's that time again. We are diving into 3 books that one of my friends have picked for me to see if I can trust one of my friends. And this month, I'm asking, can I trust Bree from Paws in a Books? I would say that Bree and I have very similar reading tastes. We have a book club together that we accidentally started because we have similar reading tastes. In genres like fantasy and romance, we tend to align, I would say, about 70 to 80% of the time, which is pretty close because not everybody aligns on every book. So I will be shocked if I do not enjoy these books, or at least the majority of them. We'll see how it goes, but these are the 3 books that Bree has given me. The first one is our group book, which is Library of the Unwritten. This one I have on my Kindle, and I do have the library book from Libby. The next book is also on my Kindle, and that is An Education in Malice. And I have the NetGalley arc for this book because I was very much anticipating this release. It's dark academia, it's vampires, it's a retelling of Carmilla. All the buzzwords for Brittany. And I also have the audio from Libby. And the last book is Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler. I physically own this book because Bree sent it to me for Christmas. Thank you, Bree. So these are the 3 books that I will be reading during this vlog and asking, can I trust Bree from Paws in a Books? I've already started one, and it's not this one. I've already started An Education in Malice. And I'm already 22% into An Education in Malice. I've already gotten a good chunk of it done. This book is reading very, very quickly. However, I'm not super connected to the characters, which is making me a little bit sad. But I was talking to a couple people and they said it takes a minute to get engaged with this story. So I'm still holding out hope that I will. It's still early days and I'm crossing all my fingers that it picks up for me. This is dark academia, which is something that I love. I loved A Dowry of Blood by this author, so I should really enjoy this book, so I'm not sure why I'm having a minute. I have my suspicions, but it's still so early that I kind of want to just sit and see if the rest of the book continues in that vein. But in this book, we follow Laura and Carmilla. Again, it is a Carmilla retelling. They are at university. They are in elite poetry class with a professor called de La Fontaine. Currently, Laura and Carmilla definitely are rivals to compete to be the best in this poetry kind of class. This is a very elite poetry class, and now they are having private sessions with this professor. Something does seem untoward with this relationship between these 2 characters and their professor. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but it does not seem necessarily above board. And I do believe there's a sapphic romance at some point in this book, but I'm not sure when that comes into play. It hasn't yet. Right now, I would say I'm not necessarily really connected to any of the characters or really engaged in their story, but it is still really early. So I'm interested to see how this all plays out because I kind of know from the trigger warnings at the start of the book, a couple of things that might be coming, and we'll see how that plays out as we read through.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
So it has not been that long since I last talked to you. I'm now at 29% of An Education in Malice, and I am going to DNF. This breaks my heart. It's one of my most anticipated releases of the year. It makes me so sad that I'm not liking it, but I'm just not. There's a couple of reasons for that I can pinpoint. Again, I've only read about 30% of this book, so I don't know what's coming, and it might have gotten better. But for me, at this point in the book, I'm just very mid and not interested in the story and in the characters. And I really need to buy into characters to enjoy a book, and this is just not doing it. There seems to be some timelining in this book that I also don't love when a book does that, where it jumps through months of time without really telling me that that's happening. I also want to focus in on these characters getting to know each other and what's happening with them, so that I can buy into their story. And when we're skipping time, I can't do that. Also, I feel like at the point that I'm in, again, I can only talk about the first 30%. I feel like the atmosphere is kind of lacking. I'm not getting the school vibes that I want to get for a dark academia book, and I'm not really getting the vampire vibes that I want from a Carmilla retelling. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to put it down. I'm sorry, Bree. This disappoints me as much as it disappoints you. I know this because I wanted to love this book. You know how much I've been wanting to read this book. So with that being said, the other 2 books for this vlog, I'm doing buddy reads for. I'm buddy reading the Library of the Unwritten with Julie, and we're starting that on Friday, I think. It's currently Tuesday. I'm just about to jump on Tuesday sprints. So I messaged Rainey, who I am buddy reading Ashes of the Sun with, and Rainey is good to start Ashes of the Sun today. So I am going to jump into this. I don't know if I'll be able to finish it before I start my buddy read with Julie. I might be kind of bouncing around once that comes up, which I'm totally fine to do because this one is super chunky and I might need a second book to kind of work through as I work through this. We'll see how it goes. But I'm going to start this on Tuesday night sprints and buddy read this with Rainey. Friends, I am not surprised that I am loving this. I'm really not surprised. It doesn't surprise me in the least bit. The bookmark decided to fly out as I said that. It does not surprise me at all because these are the types of books that Bree and I really, really agree on. Often, all the time, we agree on books like these. These political fantasy books. This is where we have a Venn diagram of enjoyment. I am adoring this book. This really has 5-star feels and it's still super early, but I just don't even want to put it down. I'm on page 146 of this book and I'm coming to you with a really quick update so I can dive back in and read some more. In this book, we follow twins Maya and Gear. I'm going to struggle with his name. I'm going to go with Gear. I can't remember how the audiobook says it. And that's what we're just going to go with. So Maya and Gear were separated when they were very young because Maya was taken by the Twilight Order because she had an illness that actually marked her as being very special and being able to become one of their kind of officers. You have to be born with this ability, and that marked her as being born with it. They obviously were very young, did not want to be separated, and it caused, especially for Gear, some very much trauma around his sister being taken by the Order. Now they are young adults. They are like 17, 18 years old at the point of this book. And Maya is about to kind of like finish off some of her last training to become an official officer of the Order. They have a specific title. I cannot remember what it is. But anyway, that's the general idea. Gear has decided to fight against the Order because they took his sister. He remembers that time it happened to him at a very influential age, and it is very influential to him. And he has kind of gathered this ragtag group of bandits and thieves and lockpicks to take down the Order. So we have kind of 2 little sets of found family in this book. So we have the little ragtag group that Gear has started. We also have Maya's group, and she just recently got connected with 3 other people in the Order to go off on a mission. So we kind of have these 2 factions kind of working towards their own goals. Within that, we have some amazing characters. Some characters that I could just fawn over. We have Maya, who is super sarcastic in her own head. I love getting her little asides inside her head. Whenever a book does that and does it well, I always enjoy that. We have kind of romances on both sides. They're not romances yet. They're just kind of like meeting and getting to know each other. But like the ships in this book, I'm here for them. This has queer representation. This is just, oh, it's so great. It's so great. The politics, the world building, the characters. I could just squeal and squeal and squeal about this entire book, but I am going to actually stop and go read some more because I want to know more about what happens. Because at this point, they've really just collected their groups, and I'm not really sure if these 2 groups will meet up. I'm not really sure when the twins will kind of know about each other again. I don't even know if that happens in this book. I hope some of my ships get together. Do they get together in this book? Because there are more books. I think this is a trilogy. I'm going to need to get the other books in this series immediately.
I'm scared of showing up. I'll miss the regular weekends. Don't tell me way too much. I never know if you mean it. get involved. I'll leave without any reason. I don't expect your calls, won't even wait too long. But I can try to speak, 'cause everything is better with you.
So I'm currently sitting on B&K Sprints and reading a novel love story, but last night I finished Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler and Friends. This is my new best book of the year, and I cannot believe I'm saying that because I thought God Killer was untouchable, but it's not, because this just took its place. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Bree, 100% right. Definitely can trust Bree with this. Highly recommend picking it up. It is definitely Star Wars coded. Now, I will say I have seen all of Star Wars, but it has been many years since I've watched the original trilogy. So I'm sure there's a lot of meanings that I did not catch in this book. Did that take away from my love of this book? No, it did not. I absolutely love this book. The world building is so rich and in-depth. The characters are so fantastic. Every single one of them, the good, the evil, the bad, the ugly, all of them are great. I love this world and I cannot wait to continue and dive into it more. These characters are just some of the best characters and I just love them so much. Maya and Beck, Geyer and Kit, and everybody else. There's so many other characters in this book. There's so many characters in this book. This book will take you on a journey. It is a journey. It will take you on an emotional journey. You will hate some people at the beginning and they will turn around and they will come around and you will like them by the end and you'll be like, wow, you've really gone on a journey. There were people that you maybe trusted at the beginning that you learn you should not have been trusting. There's treason. There's betrayal. There's such layered politics. It has everything. It has everything. It has it all. This book has everything that you want. World building, politics. If you love political fantasy, you must read this. You must read this. The audiobook is so good as well. I cannot recommend it enough. The way the narrator really hits those sarcastic moments with Maya, or even especially Kit and Geyer. Those three characters kind of come to mind as the most sarcastic. But also with Beck and the cute way that Beck kind of takes on the world around her. Like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and like cuddle the book. Like, I love it so much. I've already ordered the rest of the series. I've ordered it. It's on its way. I must own it. I must read it before the end of the year. I have to read all three because I could see them being on my best books of the year as a series. Plus, I need to know what happens after the events of this book. I need to know what happens. I need to know. I already messaged Bree and was like, thank you. Thank you so much for getting me to read this book. And Bree said that the sequel was actually maybe better than this book. So I don't know how I'm going to survive that. It's fantastic. And my first 5-star read of all of the Can I Trust, and not even just a 5-star, but like the 5-star of 5 stars. Top tier, best book of the year currently. And considering it took over from God Killer, I cannot see anything beating this, but you never know, but I think it's definitely here to stay. That being said, after I finish the B&K Book Club book, I'm going to take a little break from filming this video to read the B&K Book Club book. I am going to start the group book for this Can I Trust series. I've left it till last and I need to read it next. And that is The Library of the Unwritten. This book I have on my Kindle and I don't have it in front of me, so the author's name has left me, but it's here on the graphic that I will insert in editing. This was one of Bree's host favorites during Amazing Readathon. I obviously did not read it during Amazing Readathon, knowing that I'd be reading it for this project. So I am excited to dive in because I saw a lot of people reading this during the Amazing Readathon, and I saw a lot of people really enjoying it during Amazing Readathon, so I have very high hopes for this as well. I'm assuming from the library in the title, it's a book somewhat about books. I think it's a fantasy book that is based around books, which if a past book that I have loved that had a similar concept, I don't know how similar it was, but it was a fantasy book about books, which was Ink, Blood, Sister, Scribe. Shows me anything, as I love a fantasy book based around books. So I think I'm going to probably love this, but I don't actually know that much about it. What I'm telling you is what I know. And honestly, I don't even know if I know what I know. Like, it might be all fake and I might just be coming up with this from the name of the book. Take everything that I'm saying about this book right now as a grain of salt, knowing that I don't even think I've read the synopsis. I'm actually positive I've never read the synopsis. So like, your girl does not know what she's talking about. So I'm going to read the B&K Book Club and then I will come back in a couple of days with some thoughts on my early thoughts of reading this book. But just know that my heart is currently lying with ashes of the sun. My whole heart is here right now. My whole heart. Let's talk about Library of the Unwritten, because I have been on a journey with this book already and I need to tell you about it. I am currently on, hold on, I have to wake up the Kindle, 32% of this book. And I've had a journey. I've had a journey because when I first started this book, I was actually really, really liking it. Like really liking it. I was like, oh, this might also be on my best books of the year. I was 4 chapters in and I was singing its praises to Julie, who I'm buddy reading this with. Like I was really liking it. So let's talk about that first. In this book, we follow Claire, Leo, Brevity, and Ramiel. Those are kind of our 4 main characters. Claire is the librarian in the Library of the Unwritten, which is adjacent to hell. It's like housed in hell, but not part of hell. And it's the place where all the half-written stories that their authors never completed have kind of found their way, waiting for their authors to complete them. Claire has somehow become the librarian. I won't go into how because that does come out later in the book and I think would be spoilers to explain, but she has. And she is now the librarian working in this hellish library. She is an assistant, Brevity, who is my favorite character, or one of them. Honestly, these 4 main characters are fabulous and so interesting. And I'll get into that in a minute. But Brevity is a muse and she works as an assistant in the library. Theo is a demon who comes to tell Claire and Brevity that one of the books that has been loaned out has now gone missing. And they need to go find this book out in Earth. So how do books go missing is a little bit different than what you might think. These books are unwritten texts and their characters would like to be completed, would like their stories to be done. So when a book becomes impatient, it can actually release one of its characters into the world, and Claire has to put the character back in the book. We see a couple of these characters throughout the first 4 chapters of this book, so I can talk about those because that's not really spoilers. The first one we see is a character from like a horror book, kind of those ones that you know is going to get killed, and she does not necessarily want to go back to her book because she knows she's going to get killed. And it's a very stereotypical horror girl slasher horror character. Very stereotypical characters. Another book, the one that went missing, the hero is who got out. And again, you can really picture this classic stereotype of the hero in like a fairy tale book with his sword and his armor and his wavy hair. These characters are very stereotypical. But they don't need to be complex because they're not sticking around long. Claire's going to put them back in their books. They're coming and going. So you kind of need them to be these stereotypes because they're not going to be around long and they don't need to be fleshed out. They're not even finished stories. They're not fleshed out. Our main characters are so fleshed out and so different and have such huge personalities. Leo is kind of like a teenager in his way. You can kind of picture like a naive, kind of cautious teenage demon. And then you've got Claire, who's like this cranky librarian, but also tough. She's tough. She doesn't take anything from anybody. Brevity is super eccentric. And then we also have Ramiel, who is actually an angel that sits at the gates of heaven. And Ramiel has to do his own searching for things related to books as well, because someone brought something to heaven that they weren't supposed to. He is also a really interesting character with a really interesting backstory as like being a part of heaven, but not really a part of heaven. It's really different. And I really liked these 4 characters and how unique they were. You know, I love to fall in love with a character, and I really did with these 4. Then this book went a different direction than I was thinking it would. And unfortunately, we started to add people to this cast of characters. And I don't mind a big cast of characters. That's not the problem. But these 4 characters are so great and so fleshed out that now that you're adding characters that are not that and are not as fleshed out, I'm just feeling like they're diluting the story too much. And now I have too many people to focus on that I can't just focus on the core group that I really care about and that I want to know their story and their conclusion and what's happening to them. I also feel like this world, while very interesting, we do end up seeing different iterations of the afterlife based off different you know, belief systems or even, you know, historical ways of thinking of the afterlife, such as Valhalla is one of the ones that we see in the book. And I actually find that very interesting, but because we're jumping around from Earth, the hellish library, heaven, now Valhalla, I'm finding that the setting is getting a little bit discombobulated in my mind. It's just like, where are we? What's happening? What's going on? Like, we're just jumping around from one place to one place. And because of that, I'm losing the setting and the atmosphere a little bit amongst it. Although I do think it's really interesting to follow the different versions of belief systems for the afterlife. Like, I think that's really interesting, but I think maybe we're following too many in such a short period of time. Maybe. I don't really know if that's true, but that's how I'm feeling. So I just kind of wish we kind of focused more on these 4 characters and really what their goals were in the story. I just kind of want to focus it down because I want to follow these characters so closely, and I'm finding it so interesting to follow them, and they're so good, but the story is getting too diluted amongst that core group. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Anyway, that's how I'm feeling right now. I'm going to pick this up hopefully today. I don't know if that's possible because I do have Accidental Book Club with Bree. I'm currently reading a book with Bree. I'm currently buddy reading a book with Bree. We're reading The Au Pair Affair, which is our book club book for Accidental Book Club, which is the book club we run. So I have to read that today. So I don't know if I'm also going to get to this because there's only so many hours in the day, but I'll get to it tomorrow if I don't get to it today. I did make it to the 50% mark of Library of the Unwritten, and unfortunately we're ending this vlog just as we started with another DNF. For some reason, these books did not work for me. This book in particular, the things that I was having trouble with in the last update just continued, and I just couldn't feel like finishing it would bring any more to my reading experience. I will say, I am extremely slumpy right now. I am at the halfway point of the month and I've only finished 3 books. I've DNF'd 4. So there is clearly a slump happening. So that could have affected some of what is going on with the DNFs in this vlog. Is just that I need to lean into mood reading and I haven't been able to do that, but I'm going to start doing that very shortly. However, I will say, at the start of this vlog, I thought it would be shocking that I didn't like these books, and I am a little bit shocked. And I went back and looked at books that I have loved in the past that I have read because Bree gave them to me. Because I cannot believe that I've DNF'd 2 books in this vlog. So a couple books that I know Bree and I both love, I'm going to give those recommendations right now. One of them is Fireborn. This series we both adore. I need to finish the last book, but I 5-starred the first 2. The Bright Falls trilogy, again, is a series I still need to finish and read the last one. But I was going to stop after Delilah Green because I loved Delilah Green. Don't get me wrong, I adored Delilah, but I did not like Astrid. So I did not think reading Astrid's book made sense. Bree encouraged me to do so, and Astrid's book is so far my favorite book in the series. So I'm glad that Bree made me push through. And one of the books that is right behind me that I read because of Bree is At First Bite by Olivia Dade. This was a fabulous book with great mental health rep in it and would recommend to everyone. But I read this because Bree loved it, and I'm so glad I did. So even though this vlog does not necessarily portray the fact that Bree and I have very similar reading experiences a lot of the time, it does happen. And this is just kind of like a weird vlog where it didn't. But we do still have Ashes of the Sun in this vlog, which is still sitting as my best book of the year. And I'm wondering if some of this slump that happened after Ashes is somewhat because of Ashes, because nothing is able to live up to that at this point. I think it's a little mix of just being in a general reading slump and maybe that as well. But that is the end of this Can I Trust vlog. Thank you so much for hanging out with me until the end of this video. Everyone else who is doing a Can I Trust Brie, because we're releasing them all at the same time as we always do, is linked down in the description box below. So go give everybody else a follow and check out their videos reading Brie's favorite books. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.